You have to always set expectations. So it doesn't matter who you're working with, you always have to set expectations. Constant updates. If you don't communicate enough, people tend to get scared. Verify everything. You verify every single thing that you do. You're verifying everything with the seller, you're verifying everything with your buyer, you're verifying everything with title. The 3 important conversations, it's with your buyers, with your sellers, and with title. And I'm gonna go over each one of these and what we do to keep that communication going. Today's training is one of my favorite because people screw this up way too much, and it's not that it shouldn't be something that jeopardizes your deals, right? So these are 3 conversations that make or break your deals when it comes to dispo. So you finally build all this trust with the seller. You know, it's a great deal. You know, you're going to do well on it. You know, you can help them. And it's time for you lock it up. Let's get it closed. And this is where a lot of people typically, like, I don't know if you throw in the towel or what it is, but it's one of those things that's like, I did the hard part, right? Which is just get the deal on the contract. No, until you get paid, the work's not done. Things are not over. So 3 things I want you to keep in mind as I go through each section of this of these conversations is you have to always set expectations. So it doesn't matter who you're working with, you always have to set expectations. If you don't set expectations, people don't know what they should or shouldn't be doing, right? Or they don't know what to expect because you haven't told them. So you have to make sure you're setting expectation. Don't assume anything. Don't assume that just because you're dealing with somebody that closes real estate deals that they should know what to be doing next, or title, or anybody. Don't assume anything. Set expectations. Number 2, constant updates. All right? This is not something that you get it on the contract and maybe you assign it to a buyer and your radio silent the whole time. Constant updates, guys. This is something that everybody drops the ball in. I don't know if it's that you're scared that if you make too much contact, they might change their mind or something, but it's actually the reverse, right? If you don't communicate enough, people tend to get scared, right? Because it's like, what happened? Everything was great until this document got signed, and all of a sudden it's been silence. So constant updates. And then verify everything. What do I mean by this? Is everything. There's no limit to this. You verify every single thing that you do. You're verifying everything with the seller. You're verifying everything with your buyer. You're verifying everything with title. You don't assume anything. You don't take anybody at their word. You want evidence. You want proof. You want verification of everything. We are not talking about the purchase or sell of a couch. We are talking about the purchase or sell of a house. Excuse me. So when you're dealing with something that's hundreds of thousands of dollars, we will verify everything. All right. I'm not going to take anybody at their word. I don't care who the hell you are. You have to verify. So now, the 3 important conversations, it's with your buyers, with your sellers, and with title. All right. And I'm going to go over each one of these and what we do to keep that communication going. So first, let's start with the sellers, right? You got the property on the contract. Let them know what happens next. So a lot of you guys get a seller on the contract, and then a few days later, you're like, hey, I've been trying to get a hold of the seller because I need to, walk a buyer through it, but they're not answering my calls. They're not responding. They're not this. They're not that. Or they finally do respond and they're getting pissed off that you need to go see the house again. Why? Because you never told them that was the process. It's really that simple. I promise you. I've done hundreds of properties, hundreds of deals. It's really that simple. If you tell them at the time of signing what to expect as you move forward, guess what they're going to do? They're going to expect that. So when you do reach out to them, when you do connect with them, when you do ask for those things, they're going to be like, oh yeah, he told me that this was going to happen and here it is. Simple, beyond simple, but nobody does it. You understand? Like, these are the simple little things, the simple tweaks that make the biggest difference in your business. So make sure you are setting those proper expectations, letting them know what's going to happen. Also, every little update that happens with title, let them know. This works in two ways. One, you are staying on top of title, which we'll get to. And two, you are checking in on them. You are reassuring them that they did the right thing by going with you and not somebody else, right? Because they are going with somebody that is keeping them in the loop. You have no idea how many times I've spoken to sellers and they're like, well, yeah, John, I'm under contract with somebody, but man, that was like 2 weeks ago. I've never heard from them again. I'm like, that's pretty bad because it's not that hard for me to take that deal from them at this point. It's not that hard for me to convince the seller that they should back out of that deal with that wholesaler because they don't know what the heck is going on. You do not want a seller sitting with their own imagination, right? Because when they get to use their imagination, they'll imagine the worst. So you want to make sure when you're talking to your sellers that you're keeping constant communication with them and not just, you got it on the contract, that's it. What's the seller going to do? If he tries to back out, that's the wrong mindset. It's the wrong mindset to go about this. They're not purposely, a lot of them are not purposely trying to screw you over. It's just that they don't know what the hell's going on. So you go reassuring them along the way. You're also going to go checking in on them to see if they're already living in the house and they got to move out. How's the packing process going? Are they needing any help? Because I've had it at the beginning where I would speak to a seller and it's a few days before closing. It's like, hey, just wanted to give you a heads up. We're going to be closing this Friday. They're like, yeah, John, it's just that I haven't been able to move anything because, I'm by myself and this and that. I'm like, damn it. If I would have known this sooner, I would have helped them set up maybe a moving company, maybe done something to help prior to this and not just hoped and prayed that they were going to do their part. This is so important, guys. Again, this is not, these people should know better. The point is that this is your deal. If you want it to close, guess who's the one that needs to care more than everybody else? You are, right? If I want my deals to close, I'm going to make sure everybody's on board. I'm going to make sure everybody's got everything. I'm going to have those tough conversations with people because it's better to have it early on where we can do something about it than wait 2 days before closing and have to back out or have to tell the buyer that we got to extend, or it just becomes chaos, right? We lose the deal. You doing this sooner is much better than waiting till the end. So I hope that's making sense. Again, for those of you joining live, drop any questions, anything you need in the comment section, and I'll make sure to get to those before the live is over. So you're communicating, you're letting them know at every title update, you're letting them know, hey, I just reached out to title. Everything's still on par. We're still good to go. So just wanted to give you a heads up so you know that everything's getting done. Or if title needs anything, you are the one that's relaying that message. Because a lot of times I've dealt with sellers, especially elderly people, where title reaches out to them and they're like, I don't know who's this person that's calling me. And I don't know why they're asking for all these, even though I already told them the title will reach out. When I deal with elderly people, I tell title hey, just keep me in the loop of the communication so I can be that middle person between this. The reason for that, they went on a contract with you, not with title, not with your buyer. They don't know who the fuck these people are. They know who you are, right? So they want to do business with you. So you're the one that needs to keep constant communication with them. You understand? Other people, they work perfectly fine. But do you want to take that chance that you're dealing with the one person that's not going to work perfectly fine? And then you find out too late. And then because title, we'll get to it, but they're not the best at communicating when things are dragging ass. You understand? It's up to you. So you want to make sure that you're keeping constant communication with the seller. Be like, hey, has title reached out to you? Have they asked you for anything? Did you get this document over to title? Was this okay? Oh, you can't print it. Don't worry about it. I'll meet you and I'll pay for the printing, or you come to my office, whatever it is. Again, it's your responsibility to get the deal closed. Buyers. When you talk to buyers, you get an assignment agreement, right? How to find buyers, how to wholesale to buyers. I already did a whole training on that. So go check that out in the YouTube channel. But when you got a buyer, you're sending them the assignment agreement or you're doing a double close, either one, doesn't matter. You want to make sure that you're checking in on them hey, how are you funding this? Are you using hard money? Cool. What are the terms? Who's the hard money lender? You understand? Like, do you know that you got to come out of pocket? Do you know how much you got to come out of pocket? I had a student recently like tell me that a deal blew up because his buyer didn't know he had to come out of pocket like $23,000. And I was like, how did this buyer not know? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, no, you should know because it's your responsibility to know this. Even though you're saying, but it's the buyer and it's their lender and I don't care. Again, it's your responsibility to make sure the deal closes. I don't care what the excuses are. If you want the deal to close, it's up to you to make sure it gets closed. All right. So who are the money lenders? What's going on with that? Do they need any additional property visits? You want to know these ahead of time because one thing that's a sure way to piss off any seller is by keep asking for more and more visits, especially when the homeowner lives there or a tenant lives there, right? Get that in advance. How many visits do you need? Is one enough? Do you need more? Like, who are you taking there? And you meet them every single time. I don't let any of my buyers, unless I know them, walk a property without me. Why? Because it's my responsibility. I don't, I like my buyers, but at the same time, I don't trust anybody. If they do anything in the property or they leave the door open or they leave a window open or something happens, guess who's going to look like the ass? Me, right? So I got to make sure these things aren't happening. And this is why we don't blast deals and why we nurture buyers list and we go directly to the buyers, right? So you're making sure how many visits do you need? Is the funds secured? Even throughout the process, let's say it's weeks out, check on them every few days. Hey, man, just spoke to title. Everything's still on track. How are things with you? Yeah, everything's still good. Cool. Why? Because buyers also do dumb shit. We've had buyers where they're like, all of a sudden, a week before closing, they're like, oh, you know what, John? I came across this other property. I think I'm going to just buy that one. And it's like, if I didn't call them, they weren't going to tell me. They were just going to not show up at closing because they've done that. So it's those things that, and at that point, you can see how far you want to push it. But again, I'd rather deal with the problems as early as possible than wait until the last moment to deal with it. And lastly, title companies or attorneys. So depending on the state you're in, you're going to deal with title companies, attorneys, whatever it is. What we need to know is that clear to close, right? When is the soonest that we can get that clear to close? When we get the clear to close, that's when you can close. So you got to stay in constant communication. Hey, send everything over. Are you guys missing any documents? Are you guys missing any information? Are you guys missing anything? And email's fine, but at first, when you're building rapport, call them, reach out to them, go to the damn office, figure it out. Like, make sure they're having everything. There's a source that we use sometimes. It's called protitleiusa.com. And I think it's like, I don't know, like $250. And they'll check liens, judgments, everything on that property. Why do we do this? Is because I try to get ahead of my title company. So we typically look in the land records. We look in all this when we contract the property just to make sure, are there any other judgments? Are there any other things that are going to come up? Because title, sometimes they get backed up. And when they get backed up, I can't wait for them to tell me that there's a judgment, a lien, or something big like 4 days before closing. You get me? I want to know that as soon as possible because this way I can do something with it, right? There's a lot of judgments, liens that we know how to get rid of. We know how to bypass, but we need time for those. So what I do is not wait for title to tell me that. And a lot of times I like working with very few title companies just so we can build that rapport, credibility, that trust between us. And typically what happens is with title companies, I get to see what it is that they want. Right? So they want this document, they want this form, they want this other thing. Cool. Give me everything. When I contract the house, I fill all those things out and give the whole package of title, right? Because then what I'm bypassing is that piece of title having to call the seller and reach out to the seller, email the seller documents, do all these things, waiting for the seller to do all this when I'm already there. I can just have them sign everything when I'm there. And that way, again, who's responsible for the deal closing? You are. Right? So why wait? Why drag this out? It makes no sense. Get to know your title company. Another thing is when you're getting the clear to close, I heard a student recently, he's like, yeah, I emailed title like a week ago and they never responded. I'm like, why didn't you email them the day after you emailed them the first time? Why didn't you call them that afternoon? Why didn't you go to the office the next day? Like, how does a whole week go by without you trying again? I don't want to bother them. That's not an answer. That's nowhere near an answer. I don't care if you're bothering them. That's their job. I need to know these things. And he found himself with a massive issue right before closing. We were able to resolve it, but the problem was still there, right? All of a sudden, it's like, oh, we can't do a double close anymore with pass-through funding. So we had to scramble to find the transactional funds to get this deal closed. Now, we were able to get it done, but it just added more headaches that didn't need to be there if the communication with title was being handled properly from the beginning, right? So, and this is a title company we've closed many deals with. All of a sudden they change. That's why you just don't get comfortable. You keep checking in on them. You keep asking them questions. What do we need? What's missing? What's this? What's that judgment? What's this lien? And this way you get ahead of the problems. So again, any questions? We're wrapping this up. Let me know. Drop it in the chat. But to review, set your expectations clearly with everybody you're working with. Constant updates with buyers and sellers and checking in on title, and verify everything, right? The hard money loans, the private money loans, whatever it is, anything the seller's doing, if they're going to be moving somewhere, whatever it is that secured? Are they good to go? Because guess what? If you got to close and the seller can't go anywhere, they're going to stand their guard, because it's like, well, I'm not going to end up on the street, right? What else am I going to do? So you got to make sure that you're pushing back on those sellers and you're staying on top of the whole situation. What's going on? What's happening? What am I missing? Right? And it's the same with all the other ones. Buyers, title company, attorneys, stay on top of it. A lot of people just get too comfortable with this and they're like, oh, they'll let me know if they need anything. No, it doesn't work that way. That's why you drop the ball. You understand? When you contract a deal, you close that shit. Because it's your word and it's all we got in this business. Right? So make sure that you're following these steps, you're clear communication with each one, and you are responsible for everything.